Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another session of WiTalks. We are live with WiTalks episode 35, and today's topic is Reimagining Tech Leadership. We are honored to have Prathima Venugopal joining us, and she is the Senior Director, Software Engineering for Walmart Technology India. A brief introduction about Prathima. She leads the finance technology team at Walmart Global Tech India. Her team of over 400 people is responsible for driving the tech behind Walmart's finance functions. She drives transformational programs with a focus on improving efficiencies and enabling finance teams to drive better business outcomes. She has spent over 2 decades in the technology sector and has been in Walmart for the last 11 years in roles spanning across e commerce, manufacturing, and finance teams with a diverse technology spectrum. She is passionate about diversity and inclusion and has played a key role in setting up the Women Resource Council at Walmart Global Tech India. She has initiated and driven mentoring circles and worked towards ensuring the right opportunities for women in tech. She cares deeply about people's growth and driving innovation across Walmart. Outside of work, she dotes on her pet German Shepherd, who keeps her on her toes. She is involved in social causes such as helping people get medical assistance during the pandemic, support for girls' education through mentorship, scholarships, and funding. I would like to welcome Pratima on stage and we can get this conversation going. Hi, Pratima. Glad
Hello.
to have you here with us. We've given a brief introduction about you, and with that in mind, I just wanted to jump straight into the first question, which talks about your journey. Over to you, Pratima.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I hope it's cool everywhere, pretty much, depending on where you're joining from. But at least in India, the weather has become cool. So, Prathima Venugopal, I've been with Walmart now for 11 years. It was interesting when I was having these conversations, and part of the introduction, they said, "Okay, talk about your journey." I'd like to start from where I'm from, and a little bit from my school onwards. So I'm from Chennai, South India. Did my schooling in Good Shepherd. If you're a South Indian, you pretty much know very well that once you finish your school, or even when you're halfway through school, the only thing that's put in your head is which professional side are you going to take, engineering or medicine. That's it. There are no other options. There are no other options that you even are aware of. So that is the same thing that happened to me as well. When I finished, I liked science, but in a manner I didn't really, medicine was a little too difficult. So I came into engineering. Um, Post my engineering, which was very interesting. At the end of my engineering, I basically was of this mindset that said, "Hey, I don't want to do anything with technology. I don't want to do anything with computers." And I refused to even, though I had done well in college for whatever purpose, my computer marks, the course was fine. I did electronics and communication, but I said I don't want to do anything with it, right? And I was literally thinking of something in the terms of, I'd probably set up a yoga center and things like that. But at least I was clear that I was going to do something and not, you know, uh, not do anything out of my career. But then 1 year through, I found myself that's not going to work. I was already into a telecommunications side. I started my career as a telecommunications engineer, actually hardcore, handling telecommunications equipments, going to customer places, and working through cables and stuff like that, which was fun. Um, Post which is when I realized that at that point of time it was IT or not, period, right? So I had to understand and get into something on the IT side. So I did. I started off as a developer, and very small companies, small firms that I engaged myself with, work for. But the nice part of it was that, because of they were small companies, I could do everything. Literally had my hands dirty on everything. You talk to the customer, you understand the requirements, you build it, code it, work with your small team to figure out, if everything is working, what are they doing, putting the build out, so release, And then, if there are issues for the customer, handling those as well. Literally, being this one point of contact, where it gives you a sense of satisfaction that you've actually done something useful for somebody who directly telling you it's working or not working. But that was a great experience. I'm not sure if anybody in IT nowadays kind of gets that kind of experience. But then, slowly moved in. All of this, I was pretty much in Chennai. I spent a year in Bombay, then came back to Chennai. And then that is when I realized that, okay, I need to move out of my comfort zone, because I was staying with my parents. It was all fine. Very frankly, I had no idea of finances and what it was, what I needed to do to really be independent. Though I was working, I was earning, but then that thought never came to my mind, because I was still staying with my parents and so on. So moved to Bangalore finally, and the nice part of it, I had a very supporting family. So my dad said, yes, you need to go and understand life, please go. So I came over to Bangalore, and now I've been here in Bangalore for 17 years. I Initial time in Bangalore was 6.5 years with a company called Sapient, and then the last 11 years plus with Walmart. um, has been an immense learning opportunity for me. The technology side, when we say technology, it's not just hardcore technology. There is so much that goes into it, into building your career in a technology side. So that's roughly my journey. Through all of this learning is where I started understanding a lot about women in tech, Women's Resource Council. Very interesting is that before I joined Walmart, I mean, what there's no difference, right? What is expected out of you at work, from a guy or a girl, it doesn't matter. But the need for these forums, and what does research and statistics say, is something I started understanding gradually, and that is when I started, wanting to support systems that went through the need for women to be in IT, in tech, just in the workforce, and I started supporting those causes. So that's in short my journey. Right now, he already what I mentioned. I guess I lead the finance technology team. Um, we work very collaboratively with our US counterparts. We have wonderful transformation programs that are running right now, and surely proud moment for me to say that, hey, I am part of this team which handles finance for Walmart, which is the world's largest retailer. So numbers of Walmart, I'm sure, will talk for it. So yes, handling those numbers are surely something that's exciting.
Absolutely. Really glad to hear that. It seems to be an amazing journey. And, you had spoken about transformation. You're currently driving transformational programs. So, as per you, what have been the top priorities for workplace transformation? And also from a future of work perspective, what do you feel are the top priorities?
So when we say workplace transformation or work, right, future of work, I think if you had asked me the question 2 years back, it would have been different to what I think about it now. This whole pandemic has kind of taught us a lot about what we need to be doing, what we need to be looking forward to. From a tech standpoint, also from a technology workplace standpoint, also there have been roadmaps and plans that talk about how robotics is going to be coming into picture, how automation is going to be coming into picture. But the last 2 years or 1.5 years has kind of fast forwarded that. It has it has taken us probably 10, 20 years ahead, in terms of this whole, the technology part of it playing this role. The only thing that worked in the whole lockdown times and the pandemic times was technology, of course, apart from the hospitals and the doctors. But it was technology that was still keeping people connected, period. It was still the technology folks who were still able to work from home. I mean, we've seen very sadly, but so many other people who've lost jobs because of not being able to just be in office and being to go out and so on, right? So technology is surely the heart of everything that needs to grow. It is the heart of every growing nation. That's it. How is it from a workplace perspective that we need to look at this, or how is that transforming? Is something we'll have to look at. Okay, we're talking about analytics, we're talking about automation, we're talking about robotics. In most cases, what happens when you talk about all of this is that people start thinking about, oh, somebody's going to lose their job. That's not really true. It is more to help people do something better. Now, to do something better, if I'm bringing in automation in some form of something that was being happening, some process that was being done manually, and we bring in automation for that, which is what is going to happen. It is that that person who is actually doing that job manually can do something better. Do they need to reskill? Do they need to upskill? Learn something for that? Of course. I mean, that's how improvement happens. But you know, with effort comes rewards. So the minute that upskilling happens is where they're going to be doing something better. They will also feel better then that they are, doing something better. So in terms of how the workforce is going to transform, that is the way it's going to go. Radical transformations in terms of automations that is going to come in and how we are going to be operating. Now, we also have seen this whole work from home. IT again has been fortunate to say that we are able to do this without stopping. Whether it's fortunate or not, we'll have to look at it. But then we've been able to still work, and work gets moving. um, it's how do we then operate within this space, right? And this is,
Hmm.
over the course, again, years, this has changed. um, 10 years back also, we would have thought of it of saying, okay, you plan, you give tasks to people, they finish, come back, and that's pretty much what it is about. But now it is about empowering people. It's not about just telling them what to do, but it is letting them to do what is right. So giving them the right direction for them to feel empowered and do the right thing. So the objective is clear. What is it that we have to reach? Whether it is a finance transformation that I need to be doing, in the next 1 year for my finance business, or whether it is building the latest supply chain uh, technology or process. The objective
Hmm.
is set. You let them understand the objective and then empower them to get there. So I guess, at least to me, those are the two things that are going to be a radical change that is going to come in.
Lovely. So Pratima, you'd actually spoken about the last 2 years and how that has kind of it's increased the pace of technology, etc. Right? Uh, but also, I wanted to know your courage. What has allowed you to stick to your plans, your career plans, through these last 2 years? Through the uncertainty, through the ambiguity when it comes to what's going to be happening. Yes, technology is there, but we still hear the news and we still see the various challenges that everyone is facing. So, what has given you that courage to stick to your plans and move ahead?
Sure. So, in terms of, we spoke about people losing their jobs. That's one part of it. The latest trend has come in where people are choosing to quit their jobs, right? I'm sure there are multiple articles and forwards about this as to how people are rethinking what they want to be doing, resetting their goals and actually letting go of things that they've been doing for years together and doing and following their passion. So that being a new trend, um, you know, two factors. One is it gave me time. I wouldn't say it gave me time, but it kind of, I mean, the whole world was shaken up, right? And it was as if COVID was holding the world upside down and shaking you up and saying, okay, time for all of you to wake up and think about what you're doing. So it happened to me as well, and I said, hey, okay, I used to be called a workaholic. I probably still am, but I had to think about how I wanted to look at it, right? What is it that I wanted to focus on rather than just doing everything that I wanted to. So that is how I looked at it. And very frankly, some of my goals, and you spoke about my pet dog, I guess, was for me not just to be doing well in my career and my IT profession and so on, but to have a fulfilled life, right? And this fulfilled life comes with various factors to it. It's not just your work or job or career, but it's also about how you're able to manage that with other things around. And one of the things that I always wanted to do was actually have a dog, a pet. I've always grown up with them, but of course, at that time, somebody else used to take care of them, right? Feed them and take them for walks or whatever it is. I didn't have to do all of that, but this time it was my responsibility, my accountability. I needed to work. I needed to ensure I was being the leader I had to be in my organization, and at the same time take care of this pet of mine. And it was interesting how managing that taught me so much. Managing family is one part of it. My dad was also with me during the pandemic. He went through some health issues, hospital visits. All of that is, I guess, a given. But when you have something so different, drastically different, which I haven't had for so many years, in my 17 years in Bangalore that I've stayed, this is the, I mean, she's now 1 year old. So last 1 year is when this change has happened. So it really shook me up. When I started focusing on saying, okay, in terms of my career goals, I would literally do everything. And then I said, hey, hold on, I need to prioritize. I need to prioritize what I really want to look at in my career goal and focus on that aspect, right? So it helped me form that boundary, and work within that. I have to add a big thanks to Walmart in this case. Um, the organization puts its people first. Puts the people first. So during the whole pandemic, we had the opportunity to replan. We could get back, and this was used to come from leadership. And basically, we said, "Hey, we have replanned." When we go to our teams and say, "Let us know what you cannot do." People were falling sick; they were not available. People's families were falling sick. People were losing people. So it gave the space that was needed. So we replanned and we got back and said, hey, we probably will not be able to do X, Y, and Z, right? And it gave us a little bit of a breather where we actually could focus on our people. There were a lot of course, I think every organization has done this. We've set up, the command center types within the people, helping people to, get to hospitals or hospital beds or ventilators, whatever that might be. So focus on that people, and it gave me the option to be a part of those groups as well. So it was very fulfilling to know that I was able to help somebody or their family. And in that, also is this whole career goal part of it, right? So one of my career goals is, um, I have a large organization. I need to be taking care of my people. It is not just about work being delivered by these people that I'm doing, right? It's not just the technology delivery that's happening out of here, but it's also about their overall well-being. And for that, if the Walmart's focus on people was not so high, I'm not sure if I would have been able to do that for my teams as well. So that is surely a factor that played in.
Very interesting. So I need to ask this because it's something which keeps coming up in multiple conversations. Technology has always been hyped as an industry of men. And on that note, what has been your opinion regarding diversity and inclusion and helping, to break that stereotype of industry of men? Also, because you have, kind of driven various initiatives within your organization for women. Uh, what has been your opinion about DNI specifically to break that stereotype?
Sure. Yeah, it's a very interesting piece. Before I came into Walmart 11 years back, right? At that time, it was all just focus was work, 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 delivery, 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 period. Um, I used to get to office by 9 and literally come back home by 11:30. I literally have never seen the sunset. Like I've never been on the road or outside during sunset. It's only after it's gotten dark. Now, of course, Walmart changed all of those factors, again, from policies and things that the company has. Um, but the stereotyping part, first part is to understand why the stereotype exists. And like you said, it's a stereotype. It may not be reality, right? It is being hyped as a industry for men. Why? Is because it's kind of an unsaid rule, or an expectation that you spend long hours. um, Sometimes it's purely because our managers are not able to plan out too well, or there are, what do we say, we want to do more and hence we go and sign up for more. But somebody is signing up, I may not have signed up directly, but then I'm expected to deliver. So these are all factors that come in. And IT is one space which is known for long working hours, right? Wherever you're doing it from, whether it's from office or from home, it doesn't matter. But it's kind of, it's, I wouldn't say it's very officially spoken about, but it exists. And one probable reason why, in general, at least in India, and I'm sure it's safe for us to say, like, women are expected to take care of family, kids, um, cooking, etc., etc., right? And hence the time factor becomes a little bit of a constraint. And that is where this hype basically comes into picture. So first is to, understand that segment. um, if you leave that aside, the expectations in at the workplace, whether it's a guy or a girl, it doesn't matter, it's the same. You expect the same kind of work, the same amount of work, the same quality of work. So it does not matter, right? That being said, in the whole scenario of technology or technology base and stuff that we do, diversity is a big help. I would like to say diversity in all forms, but we focus it on gender diversity as well, right? Because even gender diversity is a big deal. Our workforce does not have so many women in the work who are there at the workforce. So it's a big thought process change that comes in. They bring in a lot of thought process, different way of thinking about things, right? This is more likely to influence the company and its culture. And then the best part is, within Walmart at least, this the culture and diversity and inclusion exists, and there's a big focus on it, so it blends well. Women are found to be better at connecting tech with business outcomes. And this is not something that I'm saying just out of myself or something. This is research that is basically said. So according to Fortune, they've come up with results that said women-led companies have technically performed 3 times better than those with male CEOs. Now, that's statistics that is talking, right? So obviously there is something that the women bring to the table. It's a different way of thinking through things. What I have seen in my teams and in my career is that it is when you have women in the team, they seem to understand the problem better, and are able to connect a solution to it better. Specifically in Walmart, I'd like to talk about it. 85% of average 85% of US shoppers are supposedly to be females. Now, if the customer base is 85% female, and if I have women in my workforce, then automatically they are going to be able to understand the challenge that the customer is facing directly, right? I don't need to be doing
Yeah.
special surveys to find out what the customer's pain points are to look at solutions for that. And that is what Walmart looks at, right? So we heavily boast about diversity and gender diversity because it helps bring in a different thought process, different challenges that they bring to the table. When I'm saying challenges, when you're having a conversation, you're able to challenge something that is coming in from the business or from a different colleague, and put these
Right.
scenarios together to be able to get a better solution. So that's my
Understood.
experience, at least.
Lovely. So this is, what you've just spoken about, gender gap, etc. Um, you've been in this industry, in the tech industry, for over 20 years, right? What are your views? And you briefly touched upon that, but what are your views on collaborating with technology and innovation to fill in this gender gap? If you could just
Sure,
throw some light there.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of continuity of the earlier point, right? Um,
yeah,
Diversity brings in a lot of different thought process. With that different thought process comes in innovation. Innovation is not just new things that need to be brought in, right? Innovation is also being able to identify what exists in some other place to be brought in here, which will be of efficient use here, right? Here can be anywhere else, right? It's also reuse that comes into play. And I guess for women it kind of comes in a little naturally. Women are supposed to be good at multitasking, again, research, okay? But those are the factors that kind of help in bringing this whole innovation into the picture. So one, why it kind of will help in bridging the gap. Technology as an industry is very conducive for women, right? As long as you have the skills, then it gives you a comfortable work environment. um, Policies and procedures exist to be able to support you. And we have government laws and policies also that come into play, so it's not only from an organization standpoint. And the culture is also a lot more comfortable and conducive, right? um, Compare it to another place where you need to go into, I mean, how you travel is slightly different, but where you need to go into an
Right.
organization where it's a lot more, um, maybe a little more hierarchical, more men in the scenario. Even here you will have men here, but then uh, there is a certain education level that brings you in here into technology, right? You need to have the right skills for anybody to be in here, and hence that at an overall level raises um, the behavioral aspects of the team itself, right? So it's a lot more easier for women to be in here, and that automatically then is going to reduce the gender gap. There are also so organizations are doing a lot. It's twofold. One is um, the women coming into the workforce, into the technology side, for which we need to look at, from the young age, how do we get women lined up into the STEM side? So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? Lined up there, so that they have the base needed so that they can get into the technology side of it. So that is step one, and that's where you start looking at young girls and helping them understand, and the studies part of it, and all of that side, so that they get in there. So that's the first. Once they are in, then is where the organization has a lot of scenario to play in, and organizations like WIT and WITs within the organizations, on how do you support these women on staying in the workforce, in the career, and not dropping out, because we see a lot of dropouts happening. Marriage, kids, then it starts, you see that kind of progressing, and the number of women available in the whole pool kind of going down as you go up the ladder, and by experience, right? So not a lot to do, a lot that can be done by organizations and by WITs, to ensure that women are in there, providing them the three E's: education, experience, and exposure. How do we do that and ensure that women stay on and are supported to stay on?
Right. So, talking about getting them to stay on, we know that, if you've got the right education, the technical skills, the functional skills, you have a segue into getting into the organization. But what would be your three leadership, uh, you know, what would be the three leadership advices that you would give to women in technology to allow them, or rather to help them continue? That is one. And secondly, to stay in the leadership race, uh, and be there right on top, be the first name called out. What would be your advice for them, for women in tech?
Very relevant question. Adaptability. One word. You don't even need three. It's just adaptability. You need to understand, one is your own skills. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunity areas? And work on them, right?
Right.
Um, Believe in yourself. At the same time, don't overdo it, right? Understand there are opportunity areas and that you need to work on them. That's one. And that's where the whole adaptability part comes in. You understand your organization, and every organization is different, okay? um, we are saying technology as an industry, IT, as a term that is used, but every organization has its own culture, ways of working. So, and the segments are also different. If you're in a services company versus a product company versus a captive, a global in-house center, there the policies that exist and so on are all different, right? In a services industry, it might be a little more because there is billing that comes into play. You need to be at the client's place, etc., etc. So understand the dynamics that exist and adapt. Be willing to adapt. In most cases, when feedback is given, we say that people change. I don't believe people change. People adapt. You need to be willing to adapt, right? Your basic nature may not change, but you learn on how to behave and respond in different situations. That's adaptability, and that's the core part of everything. um, of course, I think second and most important is constant learning. You need to understand the industry. Industry is constantly changing and growing, and new things coming in. Excuse me. So keep yourself updated on what is happening. You need to understand where you stand and keep learning. um, One aspect which is generic to any industry, I think, is women need to learn to be independent. um, and this is, my thought. I could still be extremely incorrect, but in India, we still, even if we are in the workforce and we are doing well in our careers and all of that, we still tend to um, be dependent on um, the family, the men at home, whoever it might be, father, husband, brother, right? Learn to be independent, and learning to be independent does not mean you don't care, right? It just means you can think, challenge in the right way, and um, being successful at work will automatically mean being successful at home. That's how it needs to work. So being independent financially will surely help. I'm sure that it will, over the course of time, help the country. That will be my take.
Absolutely. That's really lovely advice from you. And yes, you're right. Adaptability, I think, is it's gender agnostic actually. It's something which we all need to be careful about, and to stay relevant. Of course, we need to keep adapting to whatever's happening. Uh, one more question I actually want to ask Pratima is, do you believe women can have it all? And if you do, then what is that it for you?
Interesting. um, it's okay. Can women have it all is defined by, for each lady, what does the it mean, right? What does that all mean? We very often tend to believe that, and women in general also are like this, and I was also like this, and that is why I'm talking in general. You have to be perfect in everything, right? Whatever you pick up, your house has to be perfect, your family has to be perfect, your kids have to be perfect, your work has to be perfect. Hey, let's be human, right?
True.
Ideal world, there's a reason why it's called ideal, because it's never reality. So the it needs to be defined. Each individual needs to define their it. What does that all mean for me? define that Define that, and then figure out how you want to achieve it. For me, um, what does that it mean for me? And I think I kind of touched upon, right? Very frankly, when I started off my journey, though, when I was studying, I said either it's medicine or engineering. There were no other options. I still went into engineering. But post that, I don't think I had a great clarity in my mind as to, oh, this is what I want to be doing, right? Very frankly, I don't think. I mean, if I can say this, 80% of us don't necessarily have a big clarity on saying, "Oh, I want to be a CEO at some point of time. I want to be, I don't know, I want to have $100,000 in my account." None of that stuff, right? We kind of go with the tide as it comes. Um, do we want to live comfortable lives, earning very well? Of course, but then we don't really plan on what we should do for that, or at least that was my case. But over a course, you learn to have goals, you learn to figure out how to set those goals, right? Now, in my learning stages, or in my earlier parts of the career, I didn't necessarily have these kind of forums that existed. I didn't have people who could teach and tell us, saying that, okay, this was probably a better way to do it, or this is not a good way to do it, and so on and so forth. I had strong family. So my mom was a professor. My sister is currently a chief strategy officer. So I had a lot of influence from my family circle that told me that I had to be doing something useful in life. But what that was and defining it, it took me a period of time. So that's the important part, right? You define what that it is, and then you go for it. I do want to talk about it's a tea ad that comes on the TVs. I don't remember which channel. It talks about I think the mom-in-law or somebody asking, "Isn't my I can't find my tea?" And the lady, it's a pregnant lady they're showing in the ad, and she picks up a bag and the tea is there. So the mom-in-law is drinking it, and the lady asks, "So how's the tea?" And she says, "Whatever, some three things, right? Strength, color, something, taste is all perfect." So the lady responds and says, "Same way, house, family, and child." Because the mom-in-law would have said that, okay, after the baby, you quit your job because you may not be able to take care. And for that, the lady replies, saying, "All three will be perfect." I think the ad should be banned. It's not fair to again stereotype, right? Saying that if women are going for work, then everything will be perfect. That's incorrect. I mean, even these Women's Day celebrations, you have some forwards that show that have these women in the like a goddess with the 8 hands or 10 hands and doing everything, right? Um, how we have set ourselves up, it's not that men have set us up in this manner or something like that, right? It's also about how we ourselves want to be doing everything perfect. It's not needed. It's not needed at all. Just be human, right? Yes, of course, you don't want things to go wrong and major issues happening, but at the same time you need to balance things out. You need to understand that, and you need to have a support system. The family is supportive. If the family is not around to support you, then there are other ways to get support systems, right? And we always make fun of these, the three M's, which are very important in a women's life: mom, mom-in-law, and maid. So I'm sure they should add the husband, brother, and father also to it, right? But support systems, and that's what our at least in India, that is something that we should make use of, right? We can't comment about it for the US or wherever it is, but in India, all of these exist. So it should be more easier for women to be able to get out and do better things. I hope I
Lovely.
answered the question.
Yes, definitely you did. And in fact, you were talking about mom, mom-in-law, and maid. Uh, I wanted to know, so now I'll be taking a couple of questions from the
Yeah.
audience. And one question which has come from Jyoti and that immediately struck out was, who was your inspiration growing up?
Ah, um, very interesting. Yeah. So my inspiration, I think it took some time, but my inspiration, when I look back, is my mom and my sister. So my mom was this, go get it. Period. Does not matter what it is. She was fearless. Um, she was a professor in Presidency College in Chennai, and she was Presidency College is a co-ed college which has more boys, and she was part of the disciplinary committee there. So not easy, but very very courageous lady. So she surely had a big deal, I think, in shaping me. And my sister for sure. So there are few sentences that she would say occasionally, which is, when I got my pet dog. Sorry if I'm talking too much. Okay, just stop me if I'm going overboard. Um, but when I got my pet dog a year back, in 3 months' time, I probably went into this post-pregnancy trauma or something like that. Right? When you have a new baby, women generally go through that. You're figuring out how to actually handle that after it has hit you. And in 3 months' time, I said, okay, I made a mistake. I cannot manage the dog and my work and my life and so on and so forth. And that's when there are these times when she would come back and say, hey, you have muscles, you can use them. Just use your muscles, right? Basically meaning that you just need to let go of some of these um, inhibitions that exist in your head and go forward and do it, and things will work. So yeah, two people.
Sorry, my light just went
Oh,
off, so that's why it's a little dark.
actually, no, you're
I'm
fine.
sitting in I'm sitting in Gurgaon, so it's getting darker earlier than usual. But I just want to know, what do you see? This is a question which has come from Gulshan. And what are the current obstacles that you see that are hindering women from moving into top leadership positions?
First hindrance is the self. Like I said, I'm just going back to what I said, right? You need to understand what your strengths and growth areas are. I know that this, if there are people here, they would have surely seen statistics and how women generally don't bargain. They don't go in for positions unless you're like 80% fit for it, whereas men would go in even if they are 25% fit for the position. All that being true, but for you to be successful, it is not sufficient if you're only courageous, right? And if you only take risks, you also need to know where you stand, what are your strengths and weaknesses, right? And work on them.
Right.
Understand that segment. You don't need to behave like men or do everything just the way men do. That's not what I'm saying. But you need to understand what is needed for you to be that leader, right? And work towards it. Sometimes it is not something that can be put down in a I mean, you might go and ask your senior leadership or whatever it is, saying, okay, tell me what my gap areas are and I'll work on it, right? It's not always easy to define those aspects. It is also your own understanding of what is not said. Being able to figure that out is important. And you should have your circle of influence, right? Not always is the direct manager going to be telling you that. Your circle of influence should be able to get you that information as to what is happening and what is it that you're missing. Then you focus on that and then go forward to it.
Lovely. Lovely. Uh, we have another question that's coming from Abir. Uh, what advice would you give to returning women who are coming back into the workforce? Now, the reason why this question is so important is that we do have a very large workforce of women who are capable of coming back. So, what advice would you give them?
Nice. This is something that in Walmart we look forward to. Walmart has got events or initiatives that they run where we actually bring these women back who've taken a break, start internship, and then kind of come back full time. So anyway, that setting aside, what is important for these folks who are wanting to come back is first look at what is the gap, right? What is the break time that you have taken? Then look at what has happened in the industry in that break time, because the industry has moved forward leaps and bounds. So where does the industry stand right now, and where do your skills stand right now in the industry, right? Train yourself, learn. I would even say this for people who are still on the break and haven't yet decided to get back, is that don't stop learning, right? Just the way you were in, I don't know, school or college or whatever it was, that 1 hour of learning, whatever you're reading, even if it's a storybook, learn something. Obviously not a storybook, but learn something, right? Keep yourself updated with what is happening, because that becomes the crux of it. If you have lost completely, then coming back, you may still come back, you might get an opportunity to come into some organization, but you won't be able to succeed because that gap is too big and you've not kept yourself updated. So keep
Right.
yourself updated, look at what the gap is, and train yourself, learn. That these forums are great forums, right, where you can connect and understand, okay, what is my gap, what is the current industry like, how do you know what the industry has gone to? So keep yourself connected with that group where you started off, right? And then it is about just going out and throwing yourself out in the market and saying, hey, I want to get back.
Lovely. I think we have time for one last question, Pratima. Uh, just wanted to know, can women consciously and easily switch to managerial positions from developer ones with a work-life balance?
Okay. Work life balance versus developer versus manager are not connected. Even as a developer, work life balance can be tricky. um, Now this is the other thing, right? And this is what I tell all of my teams: work life balance is what you define. Yes, that particular program or project might have its constraints, right? Something could be very critical, so they need a lot more time. Maybe they need your time. It's a US program, they need your time in the evenings till like 10, 11 in the night. But you can still set your boundaries. You basically say, hey, I will cut off at 5 o'clock, and I will get back, and I'm available again for calls only from 8 o'clock onwards, from 8 p.m. onwards. Then from 8
Right.
to 10, you make up that time, right? So it is about what you put in as constraints and what you want to think of as work life balance. If you are looking at IT and saying that, hey, I will work only 8 hours and that is the career I want to have and I want to become a leader, in any industry, it doesn't matter, right? Unless you give your full self to what you want to do, you're not going to be able to achieve it. So you'll have to figure out your timing around it.
Very interesting. Uh, we have, I believe, time for one more question. So,
Sure.
questions are pouring in, and it's tough to keep up. But since we do have a bit of time, and this is something which we had minutely covered in the last question regarding can we have it all? So Nisha has asked, do you agree that the answer to the question, can I have it all, is different for men and women? And if it is, why? And if it is not, then why?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Do you agree that the answer to the question, can I have it all, is different for men and women?
Um, no. Why should it be?
Right.
Yeah, do women see, again, for all of us where we are right now, we probably grew up in a situation where we had a more conservative society, right? And it is needed even now. I think we, people who have kids, and if how are you okay with your girl child going out versus your boy going out and not being back home by 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whatever the time may be, is different. That is the current situation, not just in India, right? It's pretty much everywhere. But at the same time, it's about what we want to do, where your priorities are. I'm not, again, just because you prioritize work does not mean you don't prioritize home or family or whatever it is, right? It's a give and take. It's about what you are prioritizing and how you're managing everything. Just because you're going to work doesn't mean you forget about home. You still figure out what needs to be put in place for things to get taken care of. So I don't believe it is different for men or women. As a matter of fact, I think men are now in a more difficult situation because we have so many women in the industry wanting and taking on their what they used to think was only theirs, right? Sorry, men. I mean, you're a guy here asking the questions, but some of it are facts. So
No, absolutely. Means you always will, as men or as women, you'll always face challenges. Uh, Different challenges are still challenges at the end of the day. And what we face and what we see, we are looking out here for the better of the organization, for the better of our own selves. And if the women are able to help us on in the journey, there's nothing like it. And if we can help them, I think it's the right balance. So, with that, Pratima, thank you so much. I really loved hosting this and having you on the show. We look forward to connecting in future again. Thank you very much for your time.
thank you. Thanks a ton for this opportunity, and happy to have shared. Hopefully, it is useful for the women here.
I'm sure it was. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.